morning. This congregation joins with all other UUs in the nation in the tradition of striking the gong 3 times. It's once in memory of those who have gone before, once in honor of those here today, and once for the future. Thank you, Sean. Good morning again.
Good morning again.
Still.
Welcome to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist Congregation, the church that puts its faith in you. This is a place where you can be yourself, but not by yourself. Whomever you are, whoever you love, however you describe yourself or name the holy, you are welcome here. We're so glad that you've come, and we're glad that you're all here for us today. I especially welcome those watching from home, and also those of you who might be visiting for the first time. I'm looking across, and I see people that haven't been here for a while. Welcome back, and a new person or two, welcome. Please stay after service for coffee and tea and conversation so that we can all get to know each other. Now, if you have one of these, could you take a minute and please turn it off? I inadvertently left mine on the other day, and I think it rang a little bit. Maybe it was a message, but please do this. Turn it off so that we don't have interruptions. I'd like to thank Al and Mary Herring, our greeters. Jake, who runs, and who?
John.
Oh, John. Was he here also? Oh, John. I didn't realize that he was the official greeter.
Team effort.
It's a family. That's what we do. We thank Jake, our media guru in the back, Sean for music, and Susie too, who's here today. Thank you. And Jen in the office for putting this service together. Again, thanks everyone of you who are with us today to keep our space vital. We are so delighted again to have Reverend Dennis with us this morning. He's, as you know, serving our congregation as an interim developmental minister. His office hours are Tuesday from 1 to 4. Just give the office a call or make him, his phone number is in the order of service somewhere. And if you want to make an appointment, come in and just chat. And just to get to know him better, he would welcome 1 to 4 on Tuesdays. One of the things he's been doing with all of us is focusing on current committee development, administration, and working with the board to help our congregation grow. Now, for announcements, please refer to the insert in your order of service. Mine is buried quite a bit under stuff that's here. It's the blue one. It tells you what's happening this week, or what might be happening in a week or so. We have of special interest, this blue paper, please put it on your fridge. It's for our September 10th congregational lunch and conversation. And what that means, we're gonna have service, we're gonna have lunch after the service, and then we're gonna have a conversation with those members and friends who have stayed to talk about issues that are facing our church, and we need input from all of you, and Dennis will be doing that. So put that on your fridge. Also, we have a sign-up sheet in the back that June has prepared for us. There's June, and for sign up for food. And you know, Unitarians like to eat, so besides coffee, we have to have food. So please help preparing some type of repartee snack, whatever you do do your best. I also want to honor, at this point, we have a newly formed religious education committee who's going to be working on developing our religious education program for our children ages 3 and up. Sharon Barlow Palm is chair. We raise the hand in the back. Jackie Pratt, who's there, and Kathy Mitchell here. So if there's any input you'd like to give on what you'd like to see, share it with those lovely ladies. The other thing I have been asked to discuss is chalice lighters. As many of you know, in the past, we have written grants for the chalice lighters program. We have gotten technology. We were able to buy our streaming equipment. When our whole heating system went on the fritz, we got a grant from the chalice lighters to put it in. Last year, I think we gathered, between the year before and last year, towards the end of 21 and 22, and part of 23, we got a little over $19,000 worth of grants. That's funded by every congregation, and there's 2 calls. Am I right, Elaine? Wherever she is. A spring call and a fall call. And for $25, you write it and you send it into the chalice lighters. We go into a pool of money, so we can write a grant. If we have enough members or enough congregants in our congregation sign up and contribute, that gives us the status to be available and eligible for grants. And it has really helped us do our thing. I can't imagine what we'd be if we didn't have up-to-date technology equipment. We couldn't be streaming. And the heat was sort of important when it was real cold in here. I remember we had space heaters all over the place. It was not fun. So that's what the chalice lighters does. And Lillian Fifield is our chalice lighter coordinator. And if you have any questions, see her. She's busily running around doing other things today for our board meeting right at the moment. But you can see any of us on the board, we can direct you to that. Okay, also today the board meeting will be downstairs at 12:30, and all are welcome to attend as interested. I also have, it's time, I'm going to do our fish collection. As those of you who know, we are one of 6 churches that support the Fish Food Pantry here for reasons of food insecurity. We have a lot of people here. So I'd like to ask if we have 2 energetic people, maybe Kathy, you would like to get up and exercise and go take a couple baskets. Oh, thank you, Sharon. To collect food and money for fish. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And before we begin our service, we also acknowledge that this is the land of the Umpqua. These people who came before us on this land called the Umpqua, for the river that flows through it, and whose name graces our congregation. Here for thousands of years, loving this land and living in harmony, the Umpqua are still giving us gifts of action and wisdom and money to various organizations here in the valleys. We make this land acknowledgement in recognition of the Umpqua and in the beginning of an atonement for harms done, part of the path towards healing.
The word for our chalice lighting from Reverend Brian Keeley.
In the times of darkness, we stumble towards the tiny flame.
In times of cold, we seek the warming fire.
In times of repression, we reach for the lamp of truth.
In times of loss, we pray for the comforting light.
In times of joy, we light a candle of celebration.
Spirit of life, as we kindle this light, help us what we need this day. We invite you now to rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn. It's number 1000 in the Teal hymnal. Morning has come, and you'll need the Teal hymnal today because the particular version of projected music that accompany us doesn't have projected lyrics. So the lyrics are in the Teal hymnal, hymn 1000. And since it starts with 1000 in this hymnal, it's pretty easy to find it.
It's a time in the order of service that we sing Children Downstairs, but I don't see any. Would you like to sing it anyway? Sure. Let's sing it anyway. Jay, can you
I
pull
do
that?
have a story, though.
He
Because
does have a
sing
story
first.
for everybody. Go ahead, Jake.
Before I start your story, I just want to share a little tale, kind of a background story about that hymn. Some of the versions of the hymn, actually the version originally written, has some strong theistic language that some UUs found uncomfortable. So this particular recording we found tweaked those words. There's been a request from the estate of the original songwriter encouraging people to actually sing the words light of God as written. Yet we are Unitarian Universalists, and we honor the work of writers, and we honor what speaks to each of us within. So as you sing this hymn or other hymns where the language is a different label for the holy than the one you feel comfortable using, use what speaks to you. We are a multilingual faith. The story I want to share this morning is a special one in my life. It's entitled The Rope Swing, and its subtitle is A Seebeck Story. It's by James Lovelace, who did the story and the illustration, and James is a friend who I know from gatherings at Seebeck. And the characters are all names of people I know. It's not really the people, but James's story, The Rope Swing. Each summer, families near and far would pack their things and load the car, then drive for what seemed like forever, all crammed in like sardines together. Did anybody used to do family road trips like that? Yeah, many of us did. The kids would ask, "Are we there yet?" And someone always got upset. "No," they'd hear, "we just left town. Do you want me to turn this car around?" That sounds like something my dad would have said, right? The journey led up over the ridge, then down to the water, over the bridge where wooden planks meet tires round, the tumbling, rumbling, a welcoming sound. Tumble, rumble, tumble, rumble. Are there a few folks here who have been to Seebeck and crossed that bridge? Aha, I knew there was some. Sharon and I have been there. I recommend it highly, but more about that later. We won't spend too much time on the infomercial for Seebeck. And in the, I skipped a page. For nestled inside the cove where fishermen fished and divers dove, a village known as Seebeck stood, where things were simple and life was good, where frowns just seemed to disappear and miles would stretch from ear to ear, and families knew that this vacation would bring fun and relaxation. And this is the inn that greets one when you get across that bridge. Oh, good, the inn looks just the same. There's Peter and Margie and old what's-his-name. The grown-ups gathered to say hello, but the children knew the place to go was out and back behind the inn, where the maple tree had always been. And in it hung the very thing they wanted most, the old rope swing. The children's manners were at their worst, all yelling, "No, let me go first." But the parents turned and walked away and figured that's how children play. When Margie saw this rude outburst, she said, "I know who should go first. It's simple. We'll start with the smallest, then we'll work up to the tallest." So everyone compared their heights, and this, it seems, stopped all the fights. This clear display of organization had put an end to their frustration. The children saw this rule was fine and guaranteed their place in line. Some rules make sense. See, lessons aren't just learned in school, and this old rope swing was just the tool to show young Larry how to cope with tiny hands. He clutched the rope. Yes, he was first in line to go, but he was scared and didn't know if he could do it. So he froze, with rope in hand and both eyes closed. Then Gail called him Fraidy Cat and wished she hadn't, because after that she realized she made him cry. And so she thought that she should try to comfort Larry for a while in hopes that that would make him smile. That's the way we function in communities. Sometimes we make mistakes, and then we try to help people feel better, right? Then Larry saw the rope, gave the rope to Sarah, and figured later he would dare another try to pass this test. And Sarah said, "Here, be my guest." So Gail took Larry to the end of the line and waited to try it one more time. When Sarah swung, it seemed that she was more enamored by the tree. She leaned back high above, admiring the leaves she loved, just soaring back and forth content, and she lost her grip. And then she went ka-plump onto the dirty ground. And there she sat, making not a sound. And when she knew she wasn't hurt, she thought, next time I'll stay alert. Then good old Marge went to take her turn, but oh, for goodness, a boy named Charlie cut in line. He must have been about 8 or 9. The kid said, Charlie, this is wrong. You cut along, now move along. And then they thought when he was done, he went to take another run. By the way, there really is a Charlie who always gets in line first. This time he took a mighty leap and tripped and fell into a heap. The children offer little pity. They thought maybe he had learned his lesson, or did he? Well, it seems as someone who knows Charlie in his 80s, he didn't learn the lesson. Anyway, at last dear Margie took her turn, and when she finished, she had learned. The children showing much compassion, she'd earned a double ration because she hadn't gotten mad but kept her cool. It's true, she had. The children said that they could wait. It was she that they wanted to appreciate. So she smiled at them, and then she went and thanked them and swung again. Now Peter occupied his mind by reading all a boy could find. He never felt a need to play, but he stood in line there anyway. And then the strange things occurred. I'll tell you, it was most absurd. When Margie handed him the rope, he started acting like a dope by swinging round and upside down and making faces like a clown. They'd never seen him act like this. He's always been so serious. But fun is where the heart is at. I guess the rope swing taught him that. Now Larry stood there still perplexed and said to Gail, "You're up next." She grabbed the rope and held on tight, then ran and jumped with all her might. If you see the illustrations, she's clear up in the sky. She nearly flew up out of sight. It clearly caused such a fright. She couldn't tell at first glance that Gail had piddled in her pants. And when she stopped, she said to Larry, "It really wasn't all that scary." She found out who was the fraidy cat. It's true, she thought. Imagine that. Now, Larry felt his stomach churn, and on the page it shows these grumble, grumble. Then suddenly, to his surprise, felt his courage start to rise. He grabbed the rope and swallowed hard. The kid, it seemed, were caught off guard. He dried his eyes and yelled, "Get back," then whipped the rope with a mighty crack, and soon young Larry went a-sailing through the like Tarzan wailing, "Arr!" Then up flew above the trees, just like the man on the flying found trees. He found it's best to face his fear. And he said, "Hey, I can see my house from up here." The days went by and all the fun had come to pass, so everyone packed up their cars and said farewell. Their time was up, and so, oh well, they have to leave, but never fear. They plan to come again next year. And as they rumbled over the bridge, across the lagoon and up the ridge, the children turned so they could see that old rope swing on the old maple tree. Thank you. And we don't have a song to sing.
No, I do it out of order.
Right. That's good. But we're good. We're rolling.
Could you move the little box?
I've got some furniture to move up here.
Those of us who seem to be vertically challenged need that box so we can get to the mic. Okay, so now is the time in our service when we remember our joys and concerns with silent or spoken candlelighting regarding the significant milestones in our lives. I'd like to invite, I want to also invite those at home to participate by lighting a candle at home and sharing your thoughts. This is our time. I invite those who are here who wish to light a candle to form a line to my right. And when it's your turn, please give your name if you're going to speak, and please be brief. And would you please light your candle from the big candle in the sandbox so we're not dripping wax across the chalice base. And I will be with you in a moment. financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We also know we are very grateful for this. And we know that funds that we gather collectively to do a greater good for ourselves and our world can do more than just us alone in our world. And may there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. We have baskets underneath. Kathy, we have baskets underneath here for they don't get mixed up. Okay, so hang on. Kathy is in training to be a service leader, and she's doing a fine job. Let's give her a hand. Anyway, if you'd like to do these, thank you, dear. For the gifts that we have received, may we be truly grateful, and may we be committed to using these gifts to better our world and grow our greater community. And now, would you please find 402 from your great hymnal? We'll be singing From You I Receive with Sean's accompaniment. From you
I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
To continue the process of settling in and grounding ourselves here, I want to invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and I do mean the in spirit part, because you could do this from standing, from seating, from a simple movement meditation. And this is something new that came to me, so it has an experimental quality. This is maybe the world premiere of this little meditation that came to me one day. And what I want to invite you to do is just take an easy breath. That's a gift from a description of a friend just gave me. Instead of a deep breath, just an easy breath in and out. And then breathing in, reach up and stretch your body. Stretch towards the sky. And as you exhale, let your arms come down to the side, perhaps envisioning wings. And then breathe in, holding for a moment your hands just below the belly, which is considered a center part of energy in many traditions. And then hands up to a prayer, whatever that means for you. And then up again to reach to the sky, letting breath flow as breath might flow as we move together with together and up to the sky. And let's repeat that in silence 3 times at whatever pace your body calls you to utilize. One more easy breath, and then please be seated. Martha, I've got the reading here if you want to just read with me. Oh, anthem time. Excuse me. I get ahead of myself. We are gifted with more music.
Some of you may be familiar with this song. But if you know how popular this song has become, you also know that at least 1 million people have sung it, every time a little bit differently. And we are just like all of them. We do it differently.
Yeah.
Oh, summertime, and the living is easy. Fish are jumping in, and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich, and your mama's good looking. So hush, baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing. You're gonna spread your wings and take to the sky. But in the morning, ain't nothing can harm you with your mama and your daddy standing by.
Summertime,
Summertime,
and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the cotton's so high. Your daddy's rich, and your mama's good looking. So hush, baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing. cry.
Summertime.
And the living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich, your mama's rich,
Mama's rich,
and your daddy's good
good
looking.
So hush, baby,
Don't you cry.
so hush, baby, don't you cry. So hush, baby, don't you cry.
Now, after that gift of music, some spoken words from the poet Mary Oliver, sometimes called Saint Mary of Beacon Street, who Unitarian Universalists like to claim as ours, but she was an Episcopalian
Well, we'll take her anyway.
and published by Beacon Street Press, a Unitarian Universalist press. The Sunflower by Mary Oliver. Come with me into the field of sunflowers.
Their faces are burnished discs, their dry spines creak like ship masts.
Their green leaves, so heavy and many, fill all day with the sticky sugars of the sun.
Come with me to visit the sunflowers.
They are shy, but want to be friends.
They have wonderful stories of when they were young, the important weather, the wandering crows.
Don't be afraid to ask them questions.
Their bright faces, which follow the sun, will listen and all.
Those rows of seeds, each one a new life. Hope for a deeper acquaintance, each of them, though it stands in a crowd of many, like a separate universe, is lonely.
The long work of turning their lives into a celebration is not easy.
Come, let us talk with those modest faces, the simple garments of leaves, the coarse roots in the earth, so uprightly burning.
Amen.
Now, before I begin my sermon this morning, I just want to share a little piece of a conversation that happened a bit ago with the Sunday Services Committee about how long the services run here. There's an old adage in the Western Church that you try to kind of go an hour or so, but that doesn't allow for the reality of lots of music, a story, which from the smiles on faces are enjoyed here, and the so important sharing of joys and sorrows that's the life of this congregation. So we're beginning to kind of share an altered expectation. It will run somewhere from an hour to an hour and a half-ish. When I served the congregation in Humboldt County, they just planned for an hour and a half. And they shared even more than you folks do. So just, adjust expectations accordingly, because I haven't even started the sermon yet. So I have enjoyed so much in the last few weeks, as I do every year at this time, the blossoming of the sunflowers in yards and gardens all around the community. They do seem just a little bit less numerous than last year. Last year we lifted them up as the national flower of Ukraine, yet there's still plenty out there all over the community. I've also had the pleasure many years ago while traveling on a train in Europe of witnessing fields of sunflowers that stretched for acres, seemingly reaching out to the horizon. And while each blossom seems much like the next, the poet reminded us that each is a unique individual, an individual plant, and each seed is filled with its own new life, holding within its own separate universe, its own future. Sunflowers seem to say to our eyes, summer is here. Their lives are indeed a celebration of summer. Summer, unlike winter and in the in-between seasons, brings a special warmth that sinks deliciously into the core of my being. Sometimes summer, I feel like a basking lizard, just soaking up in sun and warmth deep into my bones for those times later when I will need it. On occasion, like those lizards, the feel of the warmth is just too much, and then I simply move into the shade. Summer brings a sense of ease. Because the sun rises earlier and sets later, there are simply more hours in the day to live life to its fullest. It's a season in which, for the most part, the living is easier. Now, George and Ira Gershwin, who are given credit for that evocative song that Sean and Susie gifted us with, yet many believe the lyrics might more accurately be attributed to Du Bois Hayward, who wrote the novel and then the play Porgy, which the opera Porgy and Bess is derived from. Though our contemporary sensibilities might question a story of black people's lives written by a very privileged white man, many see it as both compassionate and positive. Describing Hayward's achievement in Porgy, the novel and play, the American poet and black and playwright Langston Hughes, a stalwart figure in African American literature, said Hayward was one who saw with his white eyes wonderful poetic qualities in the inhabitants of Catfish Row that makes them come alive. And those individuals and their lived lives offer lessons to us all that echo through this season of bounty every summertime. Now, that bounty is certainly present at my home over the last few weeks. Last week, we harvested figs. Last year, we hardly got any figs, as the birds discovered that the figs were right before we did. So what were left were simply fig skins hanging on the tree. Now, this year's crop was bountiful, and since we were more timely in our harvest, the birds only got a few of the figs. We ate a lot of fresh figs and shared some with friends. Suzanne made some preserves, and I dried some for later use. The peaches are coming on now in our young tree. And in addition to just eating some sun-warmed right off the tree, we had pie, and soon there will be peach jam in the pantry to accompany the strawberry and boysenberry made earlier in the year. Suzanne also put up the first batch of her signature pickled dilly beans. I've also been putting things up. My specialty is salsa, which, thanks to the sweet and just spicy enough peppers I had stashed in the freezer, has turned out pretty awesome. I've done 2 batches, and I have almost enough tomatoes for a third, and I saved a pepper. We, of course, have lots of zucchini. And whatever produce we're not finding in the garden is literally almost falling at the table, off the table of my favorite farmer's market. We've had friends over to share in the bounty, and I've tried out my old school style smoker that I found at a garage sale. My first attempt was a barbecue pork roast, and it was great. It's summertime, and the living is bountiful. I've had lots of summer fun, too. This year, Suzanne and I bought some new-to-us small kayaks, and we've enjoyed paddling in some nearby and some coastal waterways. I've been camping a couple of times, and more outings are planned. And perhaps, best of all, as I shared briefly in the MQuest, I got to spend a week with Suzanne and 200 of my closest Unitarian Universalist friends from across the continent at UU Summer Camp at Seebeck Conference Center on the Puget Sound. The illustrations in the storybook I shared today give you just a glimpse of the place. And as I noted, the book's characters are named from real Seebeck visitors. Margie, by the way, was named for my late great-mother-in-law, Marge, who was that kind of person who would have helped people work it out. And the rope swing and the ancient maple tree that supported, unfortunately, are gone. It had some structural problems, and it became a risk management issue, an old rotting tree. But it's been replaced by a sweet small amphitheater on that hillside. The swing is missed, but the fun of the place continues unabated. Seebeck is a special place, and the gatherings there sponsored by the Elliott Institute are special events. The setting is spectacular. It's perched on a sloping property at the edge of the forest and alongside an arm of the Puget Sound. Across the waters to the west are the Olympic Mountains, which makes for some truly awesome sunsets, most of which seem to take place just at the time when one walks out of the meeting house after an evening worship. That sunset assures that the worship will linger for a while. The site includes a saltwater lagoon with paddle boats and rowboats and a swimming beach and a diving platform. There are trails into the woods, tennis courts, which have now been converted to pickleball, and lawns, acres of lawns, great for ultimate frisbee and many other games, and for some kids just rolling down the hill. The buildings include a central inn with a massive dining hall. The food served in the dining hall is pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. The best part is, though, that all the visitors that camp for an entire week don't have to cook or clean up. We just come in, eat, and enjoy, and move on to the rest of our day. People are housed in old houses and other lodges spread out along the hillside. Some are historic buildings and others are more modern. There's room for up to 250 people. So there would be space for some more people at Seebeck next year. At ElliottInstitute.org is the little commercial that I offer today. Those who gather, the 200 plus that I gather with each July, come mostly from the Pacific Northwest, though several families travel each year from across the continent and occasionally beyond. And they're all Unitarian Universalists from the U.S. and Unitarians from Canada, or at least they identify as such. For some, though, Elliott Institute is their only church. A few come to Seebeck 3 or 4 times a year, though for most, it's an annual pilgrimage. A few have been coming to Seebeck for 50 or 60 years, and my wife Suzanne is amongst them. She first went to Seebeck when she was 10 years old. I went there for the first time 28 years ago, and I met a woman there. Suzanne and I have been going together ever since. To Seebeck and lots of other places together, too. Music fills the air. There's a choir, an evening community sings. There are often wandering musicians and a late-night coffee house. In addition, there's a ukestra. For anybody who's not familiar with that word, it's a ukulele orchestra and an open-air dance. Let's see, ukestra. Oh, and a contraband band that sometimes does dances, and individuals perform at concerts and a talent show. And best of all is a rock band that comes together every year and performs at an open-air dance on the last night of camp. Many campers made their debut as musicians and singers with Michael and the Elliots. One year, Suzanne and I did a Sonny and Cher song. We did sing I Got You, Babe, with the band. And Suzanne did a stellar rendition of Aretha's Respect. So it's amazing. The week's events, all this stuff is there in part to frame the morning program, in which an invited speaker shares their unique perspective on a chosen topic. There have been Sufi and Buddhist teachers, dream workers, storytellers, indigenous practitioners, and a variety of UU clergy as presenters. This year's camp program was especially moving. The theme speaker was sibling Julian Soto, a UU clergy colleague who until recently served our congregation in Oakland, California. The program was titled Exploring Purpose and Art. Yet what the presentations they shared were really about was how do we bring the art of living into our engagement with the real difficulties of our times. Though we were at Seebeck to relax and find renewal, we were also there to be very real. Because even in summertime, much about life is all too often not easy. Julian shared with honesty and with joy the reality of living their life, as they described it, as being a brown-skinned person born into a female body. They now identify as non-binary. Due to lifelong medical needs, they've spent most of their lives in a powered wheelchair. One of the gifts I carry forward into my life was an admonition that they often repeated. Things do not have to be perfect to be awesome. Things do not have to be perfect to be awesome. I need to remember that truth because so much is imperfect. The wondrous warm weather of summer these days persists for too long, creating droughts here and in many areas across the globe. Hotter oceans contribute to increased weather volatility that spawns tornadoes in the American Southeast. Heat waves across the southern U.S. and in much of Europe and in the Middle East have persisted. Here in the Umpqua Basin and up in the Willamette Valley, the forecast for the coming week is for near record high temperatures. Meanwhile, other places have experienced flooding. And those drought conditions have resulted in tinder, dry forests and grasslands that have caught fire. There have been blazes just over the ridge from my home and in the boreal forests of northern Canada, as well as in the Greek islands. And just this past week, fire has raged in for what many people saw as paradise, the Hawaiian island of Maui. There, the count as of this morning was up to 89 people have died, and they expect to find more remains. And that historic coastal town of Lahaina, where I lived for a year as a young man, went up in flames. I get sad And I get mad. Rachel Miss-Levy, who's the Unitarian Universalist Side with Love climate justice organizer, wrote recently that it's been a hard summer, in a hard year, on top of so many hard years. Sometimes it feels like just too much. As I'm writing this, my heart is racing, my shoulders tensed up, my jaw is clenched, and I'm holding my breath. She continues. Let's pause to breathe together. Take a moment, relax your shoulders. Gently move your head in a slow circle. Take a breath as you're able and slowly, slowly exhale. Let's hold in our hearts our neighbors who are suffering. And in your mind's eye, picture a living being or place that makes you smile. She wrote that she was picturing the roseate spoonbill that recently graced Wisconsin for its presence for the first time in 100 years. Now imagine that creature or sacred space thriving. Now for me personally, that witnessing has been the young buck with antlers and velvet that appeared as we were dining in the meadow near my home. It is those birds at my feeder who, given the chance, would eat all of my figs. And it's the chimps I saw in that Netflix documentary. As a meta prayer that I recite with regularly reminds me, may all beings be happy and at their ease. May they be joyous and live in safety. Miss Livia advises that it's important that we are grounded in the present as we dream of a better world. Without a clear vision of the world we want, we run the risk of prioritizing short-term gains and false solutions, where we mistakenly advance goals disconnected from cultural shifts and get derailed by things that divide our focus and distract us from long-term goals. We run the risk of our movements unintentionally upholding injustice. Sibling Julian called on those of us gathered at Elliott to look towards our Unitarian Universalist faith to sustain us as to feed us spiritually in the face of the difficult realities of the world. Julian gifted us with a seemingly simple list of 4 attributes of Unitarian Universalism that can aid in our quest for full liberation. I'd like to share them with this morning. They are, number 1, you are worthy. 2, you are loved. 3, we all have some work to do. Yet you are not a project. 4, we are in this together. That simple affirmation of worthiness and a radical, open-hearted acceptance of its truth is the doorway to our inclusive faith. The knowledge that we in all life is loved is the profound gift of our theological heritage. The honest recognition of the work each of us is called to do is our shared call towards both inspiration and action as we seek to make real the better world we dream of. Yet none of us is a project, our own or anyone else's. Finally, and most significantly, we are here doing the work of dreaming and visioning and acting and loving together. Again, you are worthy. You are loved. We all have work to do, but we're not a project. and we are in this together. We'll take some time to explore these notions more deeply in a future Sunday. And if we invite them in, I believe they can live our lives more fully. For today, I'd like to end with the words of the poet Alberto Rios. Sibling Olean gifted me with this poem. We are of a tribe. We plant seeds in the ground and dreams in the sky, hoping that someday the roots of one will meet the upstretched limbs of the other. It has not happened yet. We share the sky, all of us, the whole world. Together we are a tribe of eyes that look upward, even as we stand on uncertain ground. The earth beneath us moves, quiet and wild, its boundaries shifting, its muscles wavering. The dream of sky is indifferent to all this, impervious to borders, fences, reservation. The sky is our common home, the place we all live. There we are in the world together. The dream of sky requires no passport. Blue will not be fence. Blue will not be a crime. Look up. Stay a while. Let your breathing slow. Know that you always have a home here. Let your breathing slow. Be fully present in this time, in this place, in this beloved community. Know that you always have a home here. Amen and blessed be.
We do have some time allotted in our service for feedback, questions, comments. Anyone have one, something to say?
I can't find a pen. I was going to pass my blue sheet around for sign-ups for CBEC. So if somebody, maybe at the back, we could have one more thing to look at. And maybe we could all have some of that fun.
You wouldn't end the arguments for me. I recommend it highly. They have a regular camp in July, one in August, that are theme-based, and then there's also one called Elliott Arts, where you pick a medium of exploration. Last summer I went to Elliott Arts and I did drumming with a drummer from Ghana. And I'm not a drummer, and it was a stretch for me and wonderful, but there were also writing workshops and painting workshops and fabric workshops. And then there's one over the New Year's, Winter Elliott, that's a quiet, more reflective place, because it's not a whole lot of fun to swim in the lagoon in December. So.
Well, here's my testimonial. I was fortunate to go to CBEC at the turn of the millennium on New Year's Eve.
So did you get the
2000.
T-shirt? Do you still have the T-shirt? It's a long-sleeve dark T-shirt.
I'm not a T-shirt person, sorry. I have some T-shirts and I don't wear them, so I didn't buy one. I was impressed that I did not feel like I could afford the registration at the time. So I applied for a scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a reciprocal gift that very graciously the Elliott Institute accepted my offer to clown. So I took my Iridessa, the carrying clown, there, not knowing what I would be doing. And I thought I would be with the children, and they said, well, the curriculum was already planned. So what they decided was that I would be allowed to call in the directions at the morning. I don't remember, worship?
In gathering, it's a,
Yes,
it's
yes,
a,
the
it's a,
in
it's-
gathering.
It's worship light is what I call it.
So I improvised the whole thing. And I was so gifted with the honor to be allowed to do that, especially at that momentous time in our history. And I went up there with a car full of people, with Reg and Janet Ranyard and Diana Wales. And I had never been there, so I did not know how long it was going to take. And so I was one of those, are we there yet?
Yeah. It's a bit of a schlep. It's a bit of a schlep.
But we had a breakup in the middle of it because we stopped somewhere to be with Diana's niece. Or no, I guess it was her sister at that time. And we had lunch. So that was good. But I have wonderful memories, particularly on New Year's Eve with the fireworks as well as the floating flotilla on the lagoon.
Yeah, part of the tradition is New Year's Eve, you burn the things that you don't want to take into the next year, and they're launched out into the lagoon. And some years that burning boat has things that come flying out of it, so.
Dennis, before I hand the mic to anybody else or bring it up to the front, in your next week's column, could you write those 4 things down, that whole portion of?
Yeah,
That would-
it'll be back
It'll be
in
back,
various
but
forms.
since I'm a visual learner,
Right.
I can remember maybe 2 of those, maybe 3, but not the first one.
Right, it'll be back, and I think it would be, a good replacement for, what is it, Article 2 of the
Yeah.
UA bylaws, just put those 4 things down, and I'll, share some theological reflections on that, and also some more
Are there any others that
of
would
what
like to share?
sibling Julian shared. So.
Connie will be our last person. Well, not last forever, but you.
I'm staying. I just wanted to share that I'm a collector of quotes, and today I get to add, things do not have to be perfect to be awesome.
That is so true.
And then I just get to say, amen, sister, amen.
Amen, everyone. We do have a hymn, do we not? Or do we
We
have to
do.
read it?
Let it be a dance. And as you rise in body or spirit, I have a little background. Rick Maston, who is the songwriter who created this song. It's 311 for those who want to see the dots on the lines on pages. It'll be, on this one we have the words will be projected, was the theme speaker at CBEC at a youth conference in 1968, which was the first time I got to go there. And I've sung this song with the guy who wrote it, so that was very cool. It's who we are as UUs and communities. But that's the kind of people who come as presenters, so let it be a dance.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the word, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need to reap the harvest. this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark, there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Please remain standing for our closing words of benediction. The words are from Gary Kowalski. With faith to face our challenges,
With love that casts out fear,
with hope to trust tomorrow.
we accept this day as the gift it is.
A reason for rejoicing. Shalom, shalom, amen, and blessed be.
Now join us and let's sing Go Lift It Up.
So go drink coffee, lift it up, right?